Hello, my name is Kira Layton and I'm the Makerspace Educator at Discovery Children's Museum in Las Vegas, Nevada. And for today's at-home discovery, I wanted to talk about this machine right here. Do any of you guys know what this is? This is a 3D printer. A couple of you guys may have started to see them at schools, libraries, or maybe even one of your parents has one at home that they use. So 3D printing was invented back in the 1980s for something called rapid prototyping. So you guys probably know that rapid means fast. So what is a prototype? A prototype is a first copy of an invention. So a way to test it out before you try and giving your invention to someone else to try. So now the old way of doing prototyping was a little painstaking. It was called subtractive manufacturing. So manufacturing means to build something. Subtractive means to take material away, just like subtraction in math. So you would start with a block of clay or wood if you were trying to build a prototype, and you would carve it away by hand to try and get it to look the way you wanted to. Now there's a couple of problems with this subtractive manufacturing process. The first one being is, what happens to all this material I'm carving away? It goes in the garbage, so it ends up wasting a lot of valuable material. Another problem with it is, how long does it take me to build this thing? Weeks, possibly days if I'm lucky and I'm a really fast worker, but it's a very long process and I have to focus on it the whole time. And the last problem with it is if I make a mistake while carving this prototype, what do? Sometimes I might have to throw the whole thing away and start over again, which that is a huge waste of time. So 3D printing was developed as a way to be something instead called additive manufacturing. So the first thing about it is, instead of carving away all that wasted material, it only uses the material that it needs. Another good thing about 3D printing is that it's automated. That means it does it all by itself. So all I need to do is develop my model inside of a computer program, set it printing, and it does all the work for me. The other good thing about this is if I print out the whole thing and it turns out that it was a huge mistake or I made something that didn't quite fit right, instead of having to start all over with building again, I've already got the model saved on my computer. So I go in, make a couple tweaks, and then print it all out all over again. So this particular printer that we're using here is what's called an FDM, or a filament deposition modeling printer. So filament is the material that it prints with. This spool right here is actually a type of thermoplastic, which means that it's heat sensitive. This machine gets up to temperatures of about 220 degrees Celsius, which is about 420 degrees Fahrenheit, which is frozen pizza temperature for your oven, but too hot for cookies. At this temperature, it's able to turn this solid plastic into a liquid so it can squirt it out into little flat layers, kind of like a fancy hot glue gun. Now, the material that we're printing here is a type of plastic that's called PLA plastic. And the reason I like using PLA plastic is because it is a bioplastic. The word bio means life, so it's actually a plastic that comes from sugar and corn. So it's non-toxic and biodegradable. That's something I really like. Now, a lot of printers will use different types of plastic. Some of them use a tough plastic that Legos are made of called ABS plastic. Some of these will print with something called carbon filament, a lot of different materials. 3D printing is actually starting to be used for a lot of different businesses. What do you guys think doctors could use 3D printers for? So they're starting to use 3D printers for making prosthetic limbs, which are fake arms and legs for people who have lost them. Some dentists are using it to print replacement teeth for people. And then another thing you can do in medicine with 3D printers is try to use it to make replica organs so you can practice surgery before trying it out on a real person. For aerospace, which means for airplanes and things that go to space, they use them for making parts so they can keep the ships up and running. A lot of those really big military planes and space shuttles from NASA have custom-made parts that only fit inside that particular plane, which means you can't make a whole lot of parts. So these are great for doing one-off parts that can only be used for that thing. Another way that aerospace engineers use 3D printers are for what's called wind tunnel testing. So they print out a little tiny model of the airplane they want to build, and then they run air currents over them to see if it's aerodynamic and will fly properly. In the field of archaeology and paleontology, 3D printing is also helping study artifacts and fossils. So what happens if you touch a fossil or an artifact? It usually will degrade over time because of the oils in our skin. So what some archaeologists and paleontologists are doing are taking scans of these different items and then 3D printing them so they can study them up close without damaging the original artifact. This is also making it so they can email copies of the artifact to each other around the world so they can all study it at the same time without all having to travel long distances to see what it is they're studying. So if you had a 3D printer, what would you use it for? Signing off from my at-home makerspace, this is Kira with Discovery Children's Museum. Have a good day.